Welcome again to another short video courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. Today is the 12th of November, 2024. When we tell time, we quite often do it using a device called a wristwatch. Although in this day and age, people are more prone to use smartphones. Some people might even use a calendar on the wall in their office. Now, back in his day, WD Gann believed in telling time using the planets, and he often overlaid increments of time on the price charts of things like soybeans and cotton or stocks that he may have been following. In this video today, I want to show you how WD Gann would have done just that, and hopefully this will expand your repertoire of astrological information and add a whole new dimension to your ability to time the market. Here's a chart of the S&P 500, and in this example, I'm going to start my analysis at the tech bubble market highs in mid 2000. Now, at that point, Jupiter and Saturn, and I got to stress, heliocentric Jupiter and Saturn at that time were 0 degrees apart. They were conjunct. And on this chart, what I've done is I've overlaid a series of vertical lines. What these lines represent is 15-degree separations of Jupiter and Saturn. So from the starting point where they were 0 degrees apart, we see that in the middle of 2001, they had started to move apart from one another, and they had separated at this point by 15 degrees. At the next line, they would have separated by 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 75, 90, and so on. Now, I want you to notice something. From the high in the middle of 2000, the market declined. It had a counter-trend rally in 2001, and look where the counter-trend rally failed, right at the 15-degree separation between Jupiter and Saturn. Market declined, had a little rally, counter-trend, and that one failed. Look where it failed, right at the 30-degree separation increment of Jupiter and Saturn. Markets declined into 2002 and made a bottom, tried to rally, tested that low that it had made in October of 02. But look where the retest of the 02 bottom came, right at one of these increments of time of separation of Jupiter and Saturn. Market then rallied into 2004, and right at another increment of separation, the market took a consolidation pause before advancing again. Took another little pause at the next increment, rallied, took another little pause, rallied into 2007. And by the way, these are monthly charts I'm looking at. And just before the ultimate high in 07, here's another of our increments. The market makes its high in mid 07, starts to decline, counter-trend rally. The counter-trend rally fails exactly at one of these Jupiter-Saturn increments. And then the market goes into free fall. And finally, just after the next Jupiter-Saturn increment, we see that the market made its ultimate low in March of 2009. So I think WD Gann may have been onto something. Now, when you're using a monthly chart and overlaying these increments, of course, it's not going to be pinpoint precise, but it certainly gives you insight into what is potentially coming. And then you have to look for a change of trend using one of the trend change indicators on your chart, or perhaps you have to use some other manner of astrology to help you zero in on when the exact change of trend is going to occur. So let's continue on here from our 09 lows. Now, bear in mind that after the financial crisis of 08, a lot of money was getting shoveled into the system, and people were buying the dip, and the astrology somewhat got obscured during the years in the aftermath of the financial crisis. However, by 2015, things started to settle down a bit, and you can see at one of these Jupiter-Saturn increments here in 2015. That marks the end of a bit of a consolidation and the beginning of another leg higher. And you can see in 2018, there's another of these Jupiter-Saturn increments just prior to a high, which was followed by a notable drawdown. And if we continue on a little bit further, what else can we see here? Well, the lows at the COVID panic sell-off in March of 2020, sure, that aligned to a Jupiter-Saturn increment. And again, bear in mind that in the aftermath of COVID, there was a lot of money shoveled into the system to get the markets back on their feet. So astrology was somewhat obscured and hidden from view as all of this money flooded the system. But certainly by 2023, you can see there's a bit of a drawdown on the S&P and perfectly aligns to one of these Jupiter-Saturn increments. So where are we now? Well, the markets are, in my opinion, priced for perfection. They've been driven higher on the back of some of these tech names, the Magnificent Seven, or call them what you want. But what I'm looking at now is first week of March, thereabouts, in 2025, we've got another of these Jupiter-Saturn increments. So what I'm going to be watching for is perhaps that's a change of trend. Who knows what the markets will do between now and then, but there is a very good chance that early March you're going to see some sort of a change in the trend and the behavior of the S&P 500. So that's what we can take away then from this Jupiter-Saturn method of measuring time. Another pair of planets that WD Gann looked at was Mars and Saturn. And what I've done on this chart here is Saturn is a fairly slow-moving planet. It takes about 30 years to go one time around the 12 signs of the zodiac. But Mars is faster moving. So what I've got on here are the heliocentric synodic cycles. So if you were looking at a heliocentric picture of the zodiac, you would see Mars in a couple years make one trip around the zodiac. So if you started from a Mars-Saturn conjunction, what I've got on this chart then is intervals that show when Mars was once again at conjunction with Saturn, and that is what we call a complete synodic cycle. So starting from the tech bubble highs in 2000, we can see that our first synodic cycle of Mars, one time around the zodiac wheel to come back and align with Saturn, came right at the 2002 market lows. 2004, at the end of a consolidation period and the beginning of a rally, we have another interval. Not so much in 06, markets were powering higher. In 08, when the markets went into complete free fall, that happened to be one of these Mars-Saturn synodic intervals. Shortly after a period of consolidation in 2010, we have another one of the intervals, and then the markets charge higher from that. So again, WD Gann, I think, was onto something here. You can use Mars-Saturn synodic cycles as kind of a method of giving you a heads up of what to potentially expect. Now, continuing on with our Mars-Saturn synodic cycle, we see that in 2018, there was a bit of a drawdown over some concerns about the overnight repo rate at the Federal Reserve. Well, guess where that came? Right at one of these Mars-Saturn synodic cycles. The 2022 lows at the end of the Shemitah year in the fall of 2022, look where that came. Right at one of these Mars-Saturn synodic cycles. So here and now, markets have just passed on the monthly chart. We've just gone by one of these cycles. Who knows? There is a chance that these markets that are priced for perfection may have a bit of a drawdown. But certainly the next one to look for is in September of 2026. Now, another one that Gann would have looked at is the Mars-Jupiter synodic cycle. So from a point in time where Mars and Jupiter were conjunct, what I've done is added times when Mars had gone one time around the zodiac to again be conjunct with Jupiter. And you can see that there's a close alignment to the lows in 2002, very close alignment to the lows in early 2009. Here we align with a bit of a drawdown consolidation. Here again in 2016, we see some good timing, good overlap. Here again in 2018. And again in just after the lows of 2020, we see another Mars-Jupiter synodic interval, 2022 lows. So where are we now? Again, we're here. We're at one of these synodic intervals. So again, these markets priced for perfection, I think they're also prime for some kind of a drawdown. And it may not be a severe one, but there's something that we need to be aware of. And this is exactly how Gann would have viewed the markets. He would have seen these intervals and he would have taken some caution and some care to make sure he didn't get caught in a drawdown. Another one that he would have looked at are the synodic cycles of Venus. And here's a daily chart of the S&P 500. Venus takes 225 days to go one time around the zodiac. And so in this particular chart, if we start from the 2022 lows, we see that in May of 2023, there had been a period of consolidation. And look where the market starts to break out of that consolidation pattern, right at the Venus 360-degree interval after it had gone one time around the zodiac. Another consolidation in early January of 2024. And here in August of this year, we see, Mercury was retrograde. There was other things happening at the time, but this was a Venus interval, and boom, it aligns perfectly well to the market low after a drawdown. So the next one to watch for is about the 19th of March. So circle that date on your calendar and be prepared for some kind of a trend change. It could be minor or it could be a significant drawdown. Another one that Gann would have looked at is Mercury. And on this chart, again, it's a daily chart of the S&P 500. What I've overlaid here are the 180-degree increments of Mercury as it goes around the sun. And again, you can see quite often that these things do align to smaller drawdowns and more significant drawdowns. So Mercury is a good tool to use. And I noticed that on December 12th, on January 31st of 2025, and on March the 9th, we can expect these 180-degree increments of Mercury. So we could, on those dates, be subject to some increased volatility. And so, what does this all tell us? Well, we know that we have to keep our eye on December 12th, January 31, March 9 for Mercury. March 19th should give us something from Venus. Mars, Saturn, synodic cycles. We know that the market is, or these timings are saying here and now. There could be some kind of an interim drawdown. The next one will be September of 2026. Jupiter, Saturn, synodic cycles, March the 7th. And I also follow the cycles on the S&P 500 as measured using an algorithm called the periodogram. And I noticed that early April, thereabouts, is going to mark the end of a 28-bar cycle on the weekly chart. So March, here and now, March, early April. I think there's something potentially coming here early in the new year that we all need to be aware of. And so I'm hoping that I've now impressed on you the importance of using these timings, and that's exactly what Mr. Gann would have done in his day. And that brings me then to the end of this video. So thank you kindly for watching. And by the way, the 2025 almanac is now formatted, and I have a printout of it sitting on my desk. I have to make the final read through and check for errors, and it will then go off and be uploaded to Amazon, and I hope to have it available on Amazon by the end of November. The other book that I encourage everybody to read is Follow the Trend, where I talk about the importance of these trend following chart indicators. I've got various courses on udemy.com. I have the astrology letter, and then you'll also find me on Substack. So thank you kindly for watching, and there's more ways to tell time than just with your wristwatch or your calendar on your wall. Let the planets be your timekeeping measurement technique. Thank you kindly, and have a wonderful day. Take care.